Have you ever looked at a globe and just assumed the world is fully mapped out and completely still? Well, welcome to this explainer, where we're going to break down the most unbelievable geography facts that completely shatter our static view of the Earth. Seriously, if you think a map is just a boring, unchanging piece of paper, you might want to prepare to have your reality completely altered today. Our planet is just packed with mind-bending secrets, hidden continents, and these wild natural phenomena that challenge absolutely everything we thought we knew. So get comfortable, because we're about to look at the world from a completely new perspective.
So, let's just jump right into the deep end, down in the Amazon rainforest of Peru at the Timpishka River. Imagine you're trekking through the dense jungle and you stumble upon a river that's basically acting like a gigantic, natural kettle. Reaching 200 degrees Fahrenheit, this river literally cooks anything that falls into it. And we're not talking about a small puddle here. The water runs at near-boiling temperatures for nearly 4 miles. But here is the absolute wildest part of the mystery. There is absolutely no volcano for 400 miles. At first, scientists actually thought this was just a myth. But it turns out, the sheer power of the Earth's crust is to blame. Deep underground, geothermal springs pump incredibly hot water up through fault lines, creating this deadly, fascinating natural phenomenon that just completely defies logic. To make sense of all this weirdness, we're going to break things down into 5 parts: Earth's extreme elements, hidden and submerged worlds, bizarre human geography, nature's greatest illusions, and finally, a constantly changing planet. Let's get into it.
Chapter 1. Earth's Extreme Elements. Let's see how nature creates extreme conditions that defy all expectations.
Okay, picture a never-ending natural fireworks show. Down over Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, the sky erupts on average 260 days out of the year. This easily makes it the undisputed lightning capital of the world. What happens is warm trade winds collide with the freezing air coming off the Andes Mountains, and it creates this perfect atmospheric pressure cooker. Now try counting seconds in your head. 1, 2, 3. In just 1 minute, this storm produces up to 28 lightning flashes. It is so relentless and honestly so incredibly bright that local sailors have literally used this Catatumbo lightning as a natural lighthouse for centuries. Can you imagine living your entire life where the night sky is just permanently flashing?
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Oymyakon, Russia. Let that negative 60 degrees Celsius sink in for a second. Actually, for context, that is negative 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Being the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth, human survival here requires intense, almost unimaginable adaptation. I mean, it's so unbelievably cold that vodka freezes solid right in the bottle. Residents are literally forced to run their vehicle engines constantly, like 24 hours a day, just to keep them from icing over completely into useless blocks of metal. You really have to admire the sheer human stubbornness it takes to look at the most inhospitable, freezing place on the map and say, yep, I'm going to build a house right here.
Chapter 2. Hidden and Submerged Worlds. We've seen the surface extremes. Now let's explore the massive secrets hiding right out of sight.
Imagine an entire continent, and we're talking twice the size of India, hiding beneath the waves in plain sight. Meet Zealandia. About 85 million years ago, this massive landmass broke off from Australia and very, very slowly sank into the Pacific Ocean. Today, 94% of this continent is completely submerged. Only the very highest peaks, which are the places we now know as New Zealand and New Caledonia, are poking above the water. What's absolutely wild to think about is that it took humanity until 2017 to officially map and recognize this as a literal 8th continent. It just goes to show you how much of our own planet remains a total mystery hiding right under our noses.
And the discoveries just keep getting deeper. Picture yourself scuba diving down into the pitch black of the Black Sea. And as you look down, you realize you're swimming over an actual underwater waterfall. Discovered using advanced sonar technology, there's a hidden, massive current of dense, highly salty Mediterranean water flowing right along the bottom, directly beneath the lighter water of the Black Sea. Because of how the physics of this density difference works, this underwater current behaves exactly like a surface river. It's so massive that if it were above ground, it would be the world's 6th largest river by volume. It even has its own underwater rapids and riverbanks.
Chapter 3. Bizarre Human Geography. So, how exactly do humans, borders, and populations fit into all this planetary weirdness?
Let's just think about the sheer, unfathomable scale of Russia for a minute. When you span 11 time zones across roughly 17 million square kilometers, you kind of stop comparing yourself to other countries and start comparing yourself to literal celestial bodies. Russia is genuinely larger than the entire surface area of the dwarf planet Pluto.
Pluto is only about 16.6 million square kilometers. So, theoretically, you could unroll the entire crust of that distant world, place it directly onto a map of Russia, and you'd still have land left over. It's one of those statistics that just completely breaks your brain when you try to visualize the actual size of the ground we walk on.
Now, if you happen to live in a crowded city, consider this wild population squeeze. Physical geography, things like vast mountain ranges, dense forests, or frozen tundra, dictates so much of where humanity actually settles. California packs roughly 39 million people into just one single coastal U.S. state. But that densely packed population nearly matches the 40 million people spread out across the massive, sprawling entirety of Canada. It's this profound population paradox where the second largest nation on Earth and a single coastal state share almost the exact same demographic weight, all simply because of how the Earth's climate and terrain restrict where we can actually build our lives. Okay. Let's look at a geographical Russian nesting doll located in the Philippines that will completely tie your brain in knots. Thousands of years of volcanic eruptions created this bizarre chain. Imagine putting this on a mailing address. So you start on Luzon Island. That island holds Tao Lake. Inside that lake sits tall Volcano Island. That Volcano Island holds its own crater lake. And inside that crater lake sits Vulcan Point. It is literally an island within a lake, on an island, within a lake, on an island. It's like nature just kept hitting copy and paste, defying all geographical logic to create this mind-bending fractal right in the middle of the ocean.
Meet the entire population of Monowine, Nebraska. One single person. That's it. Here, a woman named Elsie Eiler acts as the sole resident. But she isn't just hanging out. She essentially runs a one-woman government. Elsie serves as the town's mayor, the librarian, and the bartender, all simultaneously. She runs the only local business, grants her own liquor licenses, pays taxes to herself, and even holds solo town meetings. It's this incredible, heartwarming, and beautifully bizarre human interest story. It really shows what happens when extreme rural geography meets one person's absolute dedication to keeping their tiny dot on the map alive.
You know, humanity absolutely loves to force our rigid concepts onto the wild canvas of nature. Look at China, for example. The government forces one single time zone across 3.7 million square miles and 5 different geographical zones. That literally means someone in the far west of the country might experience sunrise hours after someone in Beijing. On the flip side, look at the United States, where we've carved a single spot in the desert, the Four Corners Monument. We cram Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah into a single surveyed dot so incredibly accurate that you can stand there and legally be in 4 states and technically break the law in 4 states at the exact same time.
Chapter 4. Nature's Greatest Illusions. Now that we've mapped human oddities, let's look at how the Earth plays gravity-defying tricks on our senses.
Have you ever felt like your own eyes are just flat out lying to you? Well, in places like New Brunswick, Canada, visitors experience the magnetic hill. You can literally put your car in neutral, take your foot off the brake, and swear you are rolling backwards uphill, totally defying gravity. But it's actually a masterclass optical illusion carved by the landscape itself. You see, your brain relies on seeing the horizon to understand what is flat, uphill, or downhill. When the surrounding land blocks that horizon, it completely removes your frame of reference. So a slight downhill slope is suddenly interpreted by your confused brain as an uphill climb, turning a simple, everyday road into pure magic.
Now imagine you're walking through a quiet, vast desert, and suddenly you start hearing this booming musical hum echoing all around you. It honestly sounds like a low-flying airplane or a giant cello. What's happening is when dry grains of sand slide down the steep slopes of a dune at very specific angles, the sheer friction of millions of sand grains tumbling over each other produces highly resonant musical tones. Nature is essentially turning a pile of dirt into a miles-wide acoustic instrument. It converts shifting sands into an incredible, echoing desert symphony that you can hear from miles and miles away.
For decades, the sailing stones of Death Valley absolutely baffled scientists. Just imagine finding massive rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, sitting at the end of perfectly straight trails in the dirt, as if they moved completely on their own. There were never any human or animal tracks around them. Were they dragged? Was it some weird magnetic field? Well, the real culprit is actually a bizarre, incredibly rare weather mix. Overnight, thin, glass-like ice sheets form on the desert floor. When the morning sun hits, the ice begins to break apart, and a gentle desert wind is just enough to push those floating ice panels, slowly dragging the heavy stones along the slick mud. Mystery solved, but still so cool.
If sliding rocks weren't strange enough, what about nature just actively fighting back against gravity?
In places like the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland and the Faroe Islands, waterfalls can literally flow upward. Seriously, when fierce, extreme storms hit the coast, powerful ocean winds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour blast straight against the cliff faces. These winds are so unbelievably strong that they catch the heavy, falling water and push it violently back into the sky. It creates an unforgettable, jaw-dropping inverted waterfall that turns into this soaring mist rising up over the cliff edge.
Chapter 5. A constantly changing planet. The crucial point we must take away from all this is that the Earth is a deeply dynamic, living system.
Because the Earth is alive and constantly moving, even our highest, most permanent-looking peaks aren't static. Deep underground, the Indian tectonic plate is continuously, relentlessly pushing into the Eurasian plate. That unbelievable pressure has nowhere to go but up, which means the world's highest peak is actually still growing. Mount Everest gets about 4 millimeters taller every single year. In fact, since Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay first famously conquered the peak back in 1953, the mountain has grown over 20 centimeters taller. The ground is literally rising to meet the sky, and it shows absolutely no signs of slowing down.
But while massive mountains are rising upwards, other parts of the world face the very stark reality of sinking. Let's look at the Maldives, a stunning nation of over 1,000 beautiful coral islands out in the Indian Ocean. To put its geography into perspective, the entire country is essentially flatter than a pancake. The maximum natural elevation is just 2.4 meters. That's less than 8 feet above sea level. Because it is so uniquely flat, this geographic quirk has become a massive existential crisis. The Maldives faces the incredibly sobering, very real threat of becoming the first country to completely disappear beneath rising sea levels within our lifetimes.
And that brings us to a fascinating final thought. If the highest mountains are rising, hidden continents are sitting just below the surface, and entire island nations are at risk of disappearing, what will our maps look like 10,000 years from now? From rivers that boil to waterfalls that flow right up into the sky, the Earth is far stranger and way more incredible than we ever imagined. So the next time you step outside, look at your own local map or even just your backyard a little differently, and remember that the ground beneath you is part of a constantly shifting story. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning the world around you.